To say I am keen to test this little rifle out is a bit of an understatement, and something certainly different for me. CZ515 lever release tactical. Also available in a timber version, which has got a slightly longer barrel. This one's chambered in 22WMR, or for us older blokes, 22 Magnum, but also available in a 22 long rifle. From what I'm led to believe, this actual tactical kit is a kit from ATI, but the rifle comes standard like this. Adjustable length of pull, lever release, it's quite firm but does click in quite well. Adjustable comb via a couple of Allen key screws on either side. QD mounts on both sides, you can see the sling I've got in there, but there is no attachment at the front. So I bought this rail, machined it a little bit to fit it, and it allows me to put the QD on the front, and also obviously the option of putting anything with a pick rail on there. I could try my Atlas bipod, or I'm going to give this little Warrior X Turbo a go, little Olight. And there is a reason why I've gone for this style of rifle over a traditional rifle, and that is this right here, night vision. And for those that are familiar with the little pards, the NV008, you might notice this is a little bit different. I've made the mount up myself so it's quick detachable, so I can go from a traditional scope. This scope's on here, little 4-16 by 44 Vixen, Japanese made, side parallax, just to purely test the ammunition to its full degree to see what's going to shoot the best. Big shout out to Nathan from Edge of the Outback. He recommended this as a good little cheaper option, and I must admit optically it doesn't seem too bad, so we'll give it a bit of a test out while we're giving the rifle a run. So really the wind looks like it's dying off, and if I don't test it today I may do something a little bit different and set up the targets at night, illuminate them with the torch, because usually the wind dies off and it's sometimes a very, very good time to test ammunition. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. It's time to give it a crack. The wind hasn't completely died off, but it's not too bad, so we'll give it a go. I'm going to start off with the rounds that I actually roughly sighted in at. So these should be about an inch high at 50. That's a Hornady VMAX 30 grain. So we'll load this up and give it a crack. Didn't like those arms call, or I'm shooting really poorly. Now we've got the 30 grain Winchester Varmint HV. Tell you what, it's not building confidence with me here, I know that much. I think I'll be doing the whole thing again tomorrow. Sometimes you just know it's just not right, and I think it's one of these nights, to be honest with you. Well, it's the next morning now. Yesterday night was to say a little bit of a failure. It was a bit of an understatement. It just didn't work out. So we're going to give it a test this morning. Sun's just coming up, lighting up the target. Wind not too bad. So I'm going to get into this. We're just going to go through, call out what ammunition I'm using, and call out what position on the target we're actually aiming for. That's what I did yesterday, wasn't it? First shot was high. This is a little bit weird, and this is what I've noticed of it so far. It seems to be on a cold barrel. The first shot always is high, and as it warms up, it starts to move itself down. And it's usually some sort of bedding issue. And like once that rifle settles down, it's shooting those last 3 shots. By the look of it, we're almost in the same hole. So yeah, I might just fire another couple of shots with different ammo and see if they do a similar sort of thing. And then I might just disassemble the rifle and try something different, because this is definitely not right. The rifle's got better potential. If you can put 3 shots in one hole there like that, and it's slowly working its way down, that's telling me there's something just not right. I don't know, to be honest with you, but I think I'm going to have to pull some things apart here, because the rifle, when I see 3 shots go through one hole like that, it's telling me there's nothing wrong with the rifling, nothing wrong with the barrel, and nothing wrong with the shooter. Sometimes you've got to go to extremities to find where the issues are. And the main problem I'm seeing with this rifle is that the first shot is extremely high, and then it starts to lower and end up grouping. The shots 3, 4 and 5, especially with a little Hornady 30 grain VMAX, have virtually been hole on hole. But the first shot has been up to 3 or 4 inch high, and that doesn't matter what ammo I've been using. So there's definitely an issue. And what I'm noticing is it's basically not so much in the rifle, but it's in the way this chassis system fixes the rifle. And I'm looking for areas that can be improved. So far, I've noticed that this whole rail system, the way it's attached to the rear of the chassis and to the front of the chassis, is the only location that it's fixed. It's not fixed into the action. This in itself is allowing for a lot of flex through here. The other point of concern is where the chassis is fixed to the barrel at the front. I've just noticed that that isn't what I think is straight. I'm going to double check that later, because I think this is a key problem. So what I'm going to do now is basically just fire it as it is and just see how good a group I can get, and more so whether it gets rid of the stringing problem. Let's see what we can do here. I'll get myself settled in. Let's see what sort of grip we can get. I think there is a problem. It's now how I'm going to fix it. There's nothing wrong with the way the rifle shoots. Like I've said, trigger could do with some work, but that's the sort of group that I would expect. Okay, where are we at with this little thing? CZ515. Let me break it into a few sections and tell you what I like and what I dislike, and possibly how I'm going to rectify these issues. First of all, the rifle itself, the CZ component, has functioned pretty much flawlessly. Probably fired about 250 to 300 odd rounds, a lot with a bit of frustration, but I now know where I believe the issues to be. Not one ejection problem. The only thing that I did find is it won't eject subs, well, the subs that I use, but it won't worry me because I won't be using them. Trigger, I've just tested it then. The actual spring tension on the trigger itself is quite heavy, and it's actually, before it starts to move, it gets to about 1 pound 10 ounces just in spring tension, so that's quite a lot. But I can understand why they do this from the factory. The trigger itself breaks at about 3 pound 1 ounce, but there is a lot of creep in there, and that's pretty standard with most CZs that I've found over the years. Accuracy, I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, because I can see where the issues are. I believe the actual CZ part of it, the barreled action and whatever, has got the potential of being really, really accurate, and the best groups I've sort of got. And at this stage I was just testing the ammunition I had the most of, and that was a Hornady 30 grain VMAX. They easily shot third to half minute of angle at 50 yards. Now, this tactical version obviously comes with a chassis, and I think this is where the overall package is let down, and I'm hopefully going to be able to rectify this. The main issue that I've seen is that the Picatinny rail is not fixed to the action in any way. And you can actually see, when you move this here, you can actually see this Picatinny rail moving left and right fractionally. The other issue where I found is this lug up the front. It's not machined parallel, it's not machined in relationship to this line here. It's actually tilting down. So when you actually do this up under here, it's putting a lot of force on this and actually pulling it down, which actually in turn puts a little bit of a twist in this Picatinny rail. And you might have seen that I actually stripped it all off and put a cable tie in there and then shot it bare, and this is where it started to shoot really well. So there is definitely going to be a second part to this video, and hopefully I can get to the stage where I can find not only the main issues, but find a simple solution to it. Because really, the way I see it, this Picatinny rail needs to be fixed in some format to the action. It just makes sense, but I understand for stripping the rifle, having to put screws in and out of the top of an action, if that's a method that I go with. Possibly won't try that at the moment. I think the first thing I'll be doing is actually just machining that inside lug down so it's parallel. That will be the first issue. Other than that, the rifle overall has shot well. The other thing I don't really like, and again this is something completely different for me with these chassis, is the actual pistol grip could be cut up a bit higher, because what I've found is your finger is tilting up and it's quite a small enclosure here. The trigger guard is quite small, and with that creep you tend to feel your finger sort of jerking along there. Again, maybe with a little bit of trigger work if you choose to do that. Look, most people would be probably happy with it, but I think seeing a natural position where you're firing with a timber stock that fixes in there and your hands up over the top, you sort of, I don't think it would be an issue. You're sort of more like this, you're pulling this direction. But with this, you're sort of tilting your hand and you're pulling down. And for me, that's something I did notice. Not a deal breaker, but I just thought I'd mention it. So at this stage, if I was to look at buying either this version or the timber version, I think you can have less issues with the timber version. I've got a couple of friends I know have already got them and they've shot extremely well. This is obviously a bit of an experiment for me, and I'm not disappointed in any way. I think I can get this thing to shoot really well, but I just think there is some room for improvement in the actual chassis fitment to the CZ itself. But anyway, time will tell. We'll see how we go. Well, it's been nearly 6 months of work on this little CZ515 22WMR tactical, and that's the sort of group that I expect to get out of it. How did I achieve that? Well, quite easily in the end. I replaced it. I replaced it with this little Lithgow LA101 22 Magnum, and that's the sort of group this thing can shoot with 30 grain Hornady VMAX at 50 yards. Yeah, I got to the point, the CZ515, I knew where the issues were. Was I prepared to put the time and effort into sorting it out? No, in the end, it just wasn't worth my time. The main issue was that the way that Picatinny rail wasn't fixed to the action, in my opinion. It just allowed for point of impact shift. You could actually grab the front of the stock, twist it and whatever, and see the Picatinny rail moving. Looking at it from an engineering point of view, how they ever think a fixing point of your scope to a rifle is not actually going to be fixed completely between your action and the scope is going to work is beyond me. Now, if you're going to be happy with just probably plinking cans and a bit of inconsistency. Great little rifle, great little action. Trigger could do with a little bit of the creep removed, but other than that, I think if you bought the timber version, you'd be a happy camper. But for me, that kit lets that tactical version down, and it was just not worth the time and effort to put into it to get the accuracy that I require, and that is what I need. So in the end, with regret, I moved it on. I may actually buy a timber version later on because I still like the little action. It worked really well. So anyway, it's just my opinion. It could have just been my rifle. Somehow I don't think so. So thanks again for watching, guys, and until next time.